All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's Millennial Trade. So I got a quick update for you guys about the possible interest rate hike that we are looking at going into December. I believe the Fed meeting is on December 14th through the 15th. It's a two-day meeting. ECB as well, European Central Bank, on the 15th will be raising interest rate hikes. But there's a couple of, in my opinion, very interesting comments from not only the Fed, but also Christina Lombardi, I think is her name, over at the ECB. So this headline's coming from Fox Business News, and it says, inflation fight could last until 2024, Fed officials warn. And the entire purpose of raising the interest rates as high as they've been raising them supposedly is to get control of inflation, because inflation has gone way past their 2% target, which has actually recently been changed to a 2% average inflation target. Over how many years? We have no idea. How many years are they going back? How many years are they looking forward? We have no idea. I suspect it could be decades, if not a century, that they're sort of basing this 2% average target on. But you have New York Fed President John Williams, all right, telling policymakers that there's a lot more work to do to control inflation. He says, my baseline view is that we're going to need to raise rates further from where we are today. The New York Fed president said that I do think we're going to need to keep a restrictive policy in place for some time. I would expect that to continue at least through next year. So they talk about the 75 basis points they've raised now 4 times. They've raised the interest rates 6 times altogether. The first 2 were 50 basis point rate hikes, and then the last 4 have been 75 basis point rate hikes. The article says that traders widely expect the Fed to approve a smaller half-point rate hike, the 50 basis point rate hike for the December meeting, although 32% of traders still anticipate another supersized 75 basis point increase. Williams said nothing to sway the markets against those expectations. Let's see. Oh, also Williams says that he expects inflation to settle between 5 and 5.5% by the end of the year, and between 3 and 3.5% by next year. By the end of the year, 5.5% inflation? I mean, we were just so... I'm not sure exactly which inflation numbers they're referring to here, but we came in at like, what, 7.9? Or no, 7.8, 7.7 maybe last month? I don't know. That seems like a stretch by the end of the year to come down to 5. Anyways, and Powell has said this recently. Powell said this, I guess... in a post-meeting press conference on November 2nd, he said, let me say this. It is very premature to be thinking about pausing. When people hear lags, they think about pauses. It's very premature, in my view, to talk about pausing our rates as we go. And, you've got more articles about Williams, the Fed President Williams. But essentially what the Fed is telling us is that it's possible that we see a 5th 75 basis point rate hike. I think the media and a lot of these people are telling us that, oh no, it's going to come in at 50 basis points, right? Inflation's going to be cooler this month, and the Fed's going to start to pivot. And this is part of the pivot, right? To decrease the interest rate hikes, right? To go from 75 basis points to 50 basis points. But I don't know. I tend to think that this is all kind of BS. I think 75 basis points is possible. And I'm not the only one that thinks that, right? You have, apparently 32% of other big traders out there are still kind of betting on a rate hike that's more in line with 75 basis points. Now, there was one more story here about, where was it here? I can't find it. It was about the ECB. I got too many articles open here. Also, the yen, guys. We got to pay attention to the yen currency, because with this whole China situation, it looks like it's kind of blowing over, at least for right now. But this whole China situation, if we see the yen, the Japanese yen, start to pop, because remember, the yen fell the last few months. I mean, it cratered. They had huge monetary issues over there, kind of like in the UK. You know, the central bank had to step in. They've been lowering interest rates, going against the New World Order's rising interest rate program. But anyways, if we see the yen start to rise, that could be a sign that investors, traders, bankers, and governments in Asia are running to the yen for safe haven, which would mean it would be an indicator as to how bad the China situation really is going. But yeah, with Williams saying that inflation could last into 2024, you know, they're trying to give us clues here, I think. They're also trying to confuse us, but 75 basis point rate hike seems to be not out of line with what we might need. And yeah, so I'm not finding this exact article that I was looking for with the ECB, but Christina Limbardi, I think is how you say that name. She's like the Jerome Powell of the ECB. She gave a speech yesterday where she said that the ECB on December 14th is going to raise somewhere between 50 and 75 basis points, right? It wasn't clear either way. But if the European Central Bank is still going to raise by 75 basis points, why wouldn't the Fed? And it's basically all these other central banks kind of fall in line with the Fed, except you have, you know, Japan and now the UK going rogue a little bit. But I'm trying to consider this. I think this is important because this might be my next big trade. You know, I'm down nearly $2,000 yesterday, that was an overnight put trade that I had. And it was a disaster. But, you know, my next kind of like overnight trade is probably going to be the interest rates or the inflation data. And, yeah, man, I'm leaning towards 75 basis points. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. As always, until next time, I'll see you guys on the next video.